Extensions is really the perfect time. I would love if we could do it at map testing, but we can't like break up that time like that. So, sorry, I gotta pull this down so I don't feel like I can't see you guys. Sorry, I'm super distracted. I need to look at my board and actually go down my board. So hopefully you have out the regular and you have your math notebook back. If anybody has an issue like you can't find yours or something, they should all be over there. So if you can't find your math notebook, talk to me. We will figure it out together. The masteries, if you have a progressing on that, there is a progressing to mastery assignment in Schoology because we're about to go over and talk about the trapdoors in the mastery. If you never turned your mastery in, I do still want to see the original, even though we're about to talk about all of the answers. I do still want to see your work on the original. A lot of people are behind on Khan Academy. So please check it. Please do it. Please check your past list for things that might have slipped past you, because then they go off the active list and they go to the past list, right? We're starting a new semester, so let's talk about notes. All of my math notes up to this point, okay, actually up to December, but I want you to, like, up to this point, need to be pulled out of your math notebook or whatever. Yeah, these are my Math 7 notes. It's a lot. Do something with them. I don't care if they stay, like, in the back of your math binder, if they go in your backpack and go home and never come back. That's up to you. If you really want to keep them for future tests, that's fine, but once you master stuff, you normally don't need to look back at the notes. Like, normally that takes more time. The next notes check I do will only be for new material. So we are moving forward. We're kind of looking at this as like a unit split, like a quarter split, but the quarter changed 2 weeks ago. But I only want new math notes moving forward. So if you don't have one of these from inside of your math notebook, raise your hand right now and I'll bring you one. Because we're going to talk about this. This is a rubric for the next notes collection. So the next math notebook collection is going to follow this rubric. The paper problem? No, that doesn't matter. So, in the future, like on February 10th, we're going to have another math notebook check. That one, I'm going to be a lot more stringent on what gets a check versus this time. This time, essentially, if you turn something in, you got to check. Like if I saw your math notebook, you got to check. So let's talk. I'm kind of in a big debate about do we talk about math notebook or mastery first. Go ahead and let's talk about the mastery first while you have it out. If you put it away, go ahead and pull it back out. Especially because my dot camera's not working right now, so I got to figure that out. Here are the trapdoors on the mastery. The progressing to mastery on Schoology asks you about a couple of these trapdoors. So take a moment and look at your mastery to see what mistakes you made, and then look at the number that corresponds with that. Well, that's tough. Can you remember which ones you got wrong?
Yeah, I got 5.
I asked you about these trapdoors on the Schoology progressing to mastery, so we want to talk about these together. Number 1 and number 2, most of us got those. Number 1 is proportional, it's $30 an hour. Number 2, the price changes. Number 3 was where we started to fall into the trap door. The order of our division, like what number is divided by what number, is told to us by the order of the words. So when it asks you for price per roll, you do dollars divided by rolls. If you got that question wrong, I bet you did rolls divided by dollars. I would put money on the fact that you probably did rolls divided by dollars. Number 4, just careful with your math. Which one was that? The plumber one? Yeah, so a lot of us got the $70 per hour. For part B of that, I would have taken either $210 or the total of $560. Something interesting outside. Just a little bit of snow. On number 5, this was the biggest trapdoor on the whole test. To be proportional, we have to start at a 0 point. What does your party cost when you start with 0 friends? Not $0. It costs $100 to start. So that's why that total cost is not proportional to friends you invite. It adds the same every time, but it's not proportional because it didn't start at 0. That's on the progression to mastery, so you're going to need to be able to write about that. If you flip to the back, number 6, most of us got that because we did miles divided by hours. I don't know why that one was so much easier than the dollars divided by rolls. I think the way I set up my table on the front made you fall into the trap door. And sorry, I do that stuff on purpose to check if you're reading and paying attention. Number 7, please look at number 7. Most of us got A, that y is 4.5 times x. A lot of us got that B was not proportional because it changes constant of proportionality as you go down the table. So it can't, right? It's constant of proportionality. That can't change and be constant. So the second table is not proportional. And the third table, almost everybody said y equals 1.5x. At least everyone who got it wrong. That's x over y. The constant of proportionality is always y over x. So if you did the division and got 1.5, your division was upside down, is what you did by accident. So does that make sense? The mistakes that you made. Sorry, I'm getting hot over here. Surprisingly, the windows stink in this place. I love having the windows, but if you look, you can see sunlight. Like through the edge, like through the seals. The seals aren't super great. So my temperature kind of goes up and down over here. Number 9, I was hoping that would help you remember for number 5. That if you don't start at 0, 0, you're not proportional. So if you look at the graph on number 9. And then number 10 was make up your own problem. That would not have stopped you from getting a mastery, but it could have pushed you to getting an exemplary. All right, any questions about that before we move on? Checking our teacher text. Oh, yeah. If there are no questions on that, put it away, and let's talk about that little rubric that I gave you guys. We're going to quickly take a little page of notes about taking notes, and then we're going to take our math notes. So check it. For me, I have a page about the rubric, and then I have math notes. So like that, or you're going to make a big line across the middle before you start your math notes. But the first thing we're talking about, like there's no header because we're talking about the rubric. So I guess the rubric could be your header. So later if you want to like tape or staple or glue, I often forget about glue existing. Oh, come on. Work for me, camera. What doesn't exist anymore? Yeah, it's like it's so tough to use. And messy in a way. I still think back to that and think that's funny, but I'm pretty sure a lot of my friends have stapled their fingers before, so. Yeah, I remember when kids, like, getting injured is cool. It's like, I don't know about that. All right, I gotta try to plug this in over here. Sorry, guys, I appreciate your patience. I just got to figure out this tiny little tech issue. I don't know why my dock camera wants to not work today. People are like, man, I wish I had a cast, but then it's summer, and it's like, yeah, except I can't go swimming. Or I have to wrap a trash bag around it. All right, here we go now. So, if we labeled, sorry, the first thing I do want you to have on this piece of paper is that your next notes check is February 11th for you guys because you're green. You need something in your math notebook indicating that this is a new checkpoint. If we use like some video game type talk here, this is our checkpoint. We're not going backwards. So when I check your notes next time, I really only want to look at, starting today moving forward, I should easily be able to figure out where today is and look forward. You don't have to write this because this is just my note of like, let's start fresh. We're moving forward. If we didn't do a very good job of taking notes before, here's your chance to do better. I will start giving you more handouts, which is the other thing I was worried about with I needed to check that everyone had a math notebook. So when I give you something and say, tape this in your math notebook or clip it in, or like I needed to know that everybody had their notebook figured out. Okay? So, what am I looking for on that next check? To get a check on number 1. And please tell me if you can't see or if I move too fast. Like, that's part of your job, guys, especially now that we're in person. Obviously, I do record videos every day, but I don't want to move too fast for you. So, every class period should have a header and a date. For number 2, vocab and definitions, notice what I did with the word obvious there. Notice how it makes it stick out. That's what should happen with your vocab words. When you go look at your notes, if a homework is a homework about unit rates, you should be able to look in your notes and find the word unit rate written down because we would have talked about it in class. The reason we take notes is for you to use them. Your notebook should not be a one-way object where things go in and never come back out again. Well, what we're about to do today, you'll be like, didn't we do this in September? And yeah, but we're doing it deeper now. So it's the same stuff, right? So if you learned it well back then, you're going to, be better off today. Yep. You already did some Khan Academy, didn't you? The like terms and stuff. For number 3, and I noticed this for a lot of people, like, you'd write the beginning of the problem, but then we solve it together and you don't have the solution in your notes, which is pointless because then you don't have, like, how do you do it? And guys, when I make these broad statements, don't think I'm talking to you, but if you're like, yeah, you're talking about me, then realize you got to make a change. But I'm talking about all of the, 80 notebooks I looked at, just things that I saw. So don't feel like I'm, coming at you. Huh? No, somebody in actually my Math 8 class, their notebook was a lined paper notebook, and it was their everything notebook. Connections was in it, social studies was in it. I was like, what? No, you have a math note. If you need to just make it a stack of graph paper, whatever, but you can't have an everything notebook. That's just chaos. Yeah, so when they turned in their math notebook, they turned in, a ton of stuff to me. I was like, I don't want this. And, you should have this with you. And number 4, that's exactly what we're talking about right now. You use graph paper. You write left to right. You write top to bottom. Your paper looks like you are a 7th grader. And I say that with love because it's my job to make you step up your game. Right? It's no longer elementary school. Now, I love doodles as much as the next person, but do that on a separate piece of paper. Right? And you can leave your doodles in your math notebook, but it should not be math problem, picture of a train. It's math problem, maybe a vocab word, but doodles should be separate. So I read this really interesting research article. Back when I was in college, they made us read it, because we were in school, about if you use the bed in the dorm room as your everything spot, where I do my homework, where I instant message with my friends, when you go to sleep, your brain is like, I want to do my homework. I want to instant message with my friend. Like, your brain starts to get in these habits, right? So we need to get our brain in good habits as we move forward. So letting yourself write sideways on paper is a habit we got to break, right? Like, letting yourself start notes in the middle of a page is a habit we got to break. Like, there are certain things that are expected out of us, right? Like, putting dates on papers is not a big expectation. And that's a really good organizational strategy as you get older. Cumulative, fancy word for all together. So, cumulative, that is where your grade would be all together. So, you don't have to get a check in every single one of these spots. I might tell you, like, hey, you got to work on your, like, worked out problems. You stop halfway through, and you need to tell me to slow down if I need to slow down. You might get a check minus in, like, one or two of those spots and still get a check on your notebook. And then moving forward, we'll say, like, hey, here's some growth targets, right? Here's things that you need to get better. But if you have, like, check minuses or, like, X's across the board on it's not going to be a check, right? So your cumulative is your final together grade, the grade that goes in math. Questions on this? When's your next notebook check? Yeah, the 11th for you guys because you're green. And what am I checking then? Only new stuff. Now, today I'm going to start, well, actually, I'm going to change my header. I really like a part of these notes, but then I dislike how I made my header. So if I was you, I would start a new page, because this almost perfectly fits exactly on one page, at least in my notes. But this is up to you. Oh, the other thing I almost forgot to say, because it's this slide, and that's why I make these slides. This is my math notebook, and I just have to keep a schedule here because I can't keep our schedule straight, so I keep this so I can look at it whenever. If you miss anything from class, you can come and just like literally grab this. I mean, if I'm sitting here, probably ask me so it's not awkward. Because if you just walk up and like steal something of mine, that would be weird. But Math 7 is the first section in here. So I have the notes from the past couple weeks. But aside from that, it's all my old stuff is in my binder clip over here. So if you need to see what I'm expecting your notes to look similar to, that is available to you. You may borrow my notebook at any time. So today, we are talking about expressions, equations, and inequalities. And actually, I think what we're going to do for our header is define these words in the header. So let's put a date on our paper. What is today? 28th. It's almost February. You guys getting ready for Valentine's Day? Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I guess I have my wife, so that's it. We'll probably like have a romantic evening of playing a board game. Well, you could have a romantic evening playing a board game, like online or socially distanced. I don't know. Look, normally 7th graders have a little bit of like who's dating who, but I know it's COVID, so that's weird. Well, I mean, that's why you should date each other, just two socially awkward people. All right, expressions. And actually, we're going to like, if you can make a fancy bracket or something, we'll bracket this and say like, hey, this is our header. Expressions, their definition for that is just numbers. And if you guys aren't familiar with this, and/or means you might use the word and, you might use the word or. That either word could be used there. So numbers and or, what else could be in an expression? Starts with a V. Yeah, variables. Then equations. All right, I'm A-Q-U-I. I don't know why my brain is like, that's wrong. Yeah, it's an A. I don't know why I'm trying to put an I there because the root of equi that we've been learning. I think, but it's okay. E-Q-A-T-I-O-N-S. I can't keep my notes looking nice for the life of me. What does an equation have that an expression doesn't have? A what? Well, yeah, but what symbol? An equal sign. So it says that two expressions, right? There's an expression on each side of that equal sign. Two expressions are equal. So an equation has two expressions. And now the hard word to write today, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you thought equations was hard like I did. Inequalities. Yeah, I know. Say that one expression is, you could put the word bigger or smaller here. Because if one expression is bigger, then the other expression is smaller. Right, so if we were going to try to spot differences between expressions, equations, and inequalities, quickly we could say, oh, this one has no equal sign. It's just numbers and letters. It's an expression. This one does have an equal sign. That's an equation. This one has the inequality sign, which we often talk about like a gator, right? Like an alligator eating the bigger side. So here the left side is bigger, making the right side smaller. So any questions on that vocab of expressions, equations, and inequalities, that is going to be our header, so we can draw like a little squiggly line or something cute to say, all right, now we're starting our notes. I mean, that is the start of our notes, but... So the header I did in the other class was expressions, equations, and inequalities, and then we defined them. So I was like, well, that was silly, because if these are the words that we're about to define, like I might as well just whatever. So there the fancy a few more words. So an equation says that two expressions are equal to each other, and an inequality says one expression is bigger, the other expression is smaller. So when we look at parts of an expression, because we got to build up from expressions and go from there, if we have the expression 7n plus 2, I do not know why it seems so tough for people, I don't just mean 7th graders, but people, to remember that a number, just a number, is constant. You are not constant. You're always changing, growing, like learning. But a number, $5. $5 is $5. $5 per hour that I work, that's not constant. So a number in an expression is called a constant. Here, I'll try to get a little closer. I see people trying to see. All right, I'll just go ahead and show you all the other vocab words then so I can get closer. The 7 times the n. Guys, this is, again, where I think, like math, just there, we were all out of small words, and we started to have to use just real big words. Like add, minus, like we ran out of small words. So guys, know that this is kind of exactly like what I'm going to look for your notes to look like. So if you're just kind of hanging out and like absorbing things right now, let's wake up and get on it. A coefficient. What does co mean? What's that stem mean? If you collaborate with somebody together, right? Like with. So coefficient. Sorry, Jocelyn, remember, you can just shout stuff out because we're together and it's just quicker that way. And it makes me feel better when people are talking to like at the same time. Like collaborating, right? I missed that when we were on Zoom. So I've for 9 years in a row now. It is the multiplier with the variable. Guys, it can really be the multiplier with anything. So when we get to the distributive property, which is back there, the top right poster, if you'd like to see a great poster for the distributive property to kiss your parentheses goodbye. We'll talk about a coefficient on a whole expression, but coefficient is most often talked about as the number in front of the variable. And then, of course, the variable is just what we call our unknown. So a variable can actually be anything. It could be like the shape of a triangle. It could be the picture of a dog. Like, it doesn't have to be a letter, but that's what we use most often. Although a picture of a dog would make the math problems a lot more fun. I do have these cool stencils. I don't know if you guys have ever seen things like this, but like I have these metal stencils, so I could use like little pictures for variables. journaling? Am I not allowed to have stencils? You're just like, why do you have these? What does Mr. Hudson need stencils for? Yeah. So it's probably easier to see here, but expression, equation, inequality. Yeah, I just flipped pages. Sorry, I just flipped pages. That's why, I went to my notes from my other class. No, so this is what I just showed you in my notes. So you don't really need the word operation, but let's remind ourselves the operation makes this two different terms because remember, we can't do the addition. So since the addition stays there, bless you, this is two different terms because that addition symbol keeps it two separate terms. So next vocab word is up here, and I'm going to put my notes up here, but know that it is the blue text is what I would like you to write down. You don't necessarily have to write what's in parentheses, but like terms, yeah, and this is the problem is I wrote it out real wide. Like terms means same variable to the same power. So the same variable to the same power is what makes something like terms. And guys, notice, are my notes perfectly clean and proper and no. But can I read and see from if I look at the whole page, hey, what did we do today? What should I have learned? Where are my example problems? Because you can't see them yet. This is what your notes should look like. It's okay to take up a lot of page. If anybody ever made you feel bad about using page space, they're silly.
When I was younger, I would write a sentence, and when I got to the period part, I would jump and then just fill it in until someone said, "Why do you do that?" And then I stopped.
So you just made a giant period on your paper? That's real funny. Look, sometimes it's easier to see. All right, you do not need to write these examples down. Let's just look at them and make sure we understand what we're doing. Victor, do I need you to do some jumping jacks or something? Open that window if you need some cold air to wake you up, man. All right, so like terms. Same variable, so 4a and 5, no, because 5 doesn't have a variable. Right, so if we look at 4a and then we find that we have a 2a, those can add together. And the 5 and the 5 and 3. 5 and 3 would make 8. Oh, the negative, which a lot of you are thinking, wait, that's a minus. Remember, it's either. It's both. So that negative goes with the 3. So we have a 5 and a negative 3. We get 2. Guys, this is where 7th graders get confused. So please give me your attention if I've only got part of it. X squared is literally describing a square object. So this square object is like x squared. X is the length of it. So x is a line, whereas x squared is a flat object. So when we talk about x squared and x, they're two completely different things. Think of x like a straight line, and think of x squared as a square. So we cannot put them together. The same thing with x and y, even though all of these use x's, an x with a y, a variable with another variable, is like a completely different variable. So xy might as well be z, right? It is not x, it's not y. It's its own thing. So you won't see tough problems like that probably till next week. But I really want to make you aware, x squared can go with x squared, but x has nothing to do with that. Xy can go with xy, but x has nothing to do with that. So the x value stays all lonely. Like Justin Bieber. I'm so alone. That song gets stuck in my head so bad. And why do you gotta swear, bro? Just leave the F word out of this. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Justin Bieber has a new song where he just whines about being lonely. It's like, bro, we're all lonely right now. Right, well, that is a misconception. Famous people can be just as lonely as any normal person. All right, so if we are going to look at combining like terms, so as long as you have that definition of like terms, like pretty much right above here, you don't need to write anything else, but you could write combine like terms if you would like to give another little section header. If we have negative 3z minus z, notice how I have a bunch more stuff written here? Let's look at this, like real close investigation. Remember that if we just have a variable, there's actually a 1 in front of it. If we just have a variable, there's actually a power of 1 above it. So if we don't see a power, there's actually always a power. So guys, imagine this like, I don't know if you play video games or anything like that, but imagine like those little floating things that like if you hit a button you can see, but then if you hit a button they disappear. Like what's in my backpack or stuff like that in video games. That's like the powers of numbers. Now, when there's a power of like 2 or 3, or like you have to show it because it's big, but when there's a power of 1, it can disappear. You can show it or you can not show it. It doesn't matter. So that's why I have all this extra stuff written compared to what's on the screen. Z is actually z to the first power. I wanted to make that reminder. So if we combine these like terms, the trapdoor you're going to fall into. I promise you. But now I hope you prove me wrong because I'm telling you that you're going to fall into this trapdoor. You're going to say 3z minus z is 2z. Oh yeah, negative. It's negative 2z. No. Remember, subtraction is a lie. We should change this to addition of the negative, which will more easily help us see, oh yeah, it's 2 bad guys. Right? We got a bad guy 3z and a bad guy 1z. The variables don't change whether they're good or bad. They just give us like another name, right? They're like team Z. So then we get negative 4z. Try the other 3 on your own. Right, that next one, negative 4p plus negative 6p. Sorry, these are kind of pixelated. I don't know why that exactly happened. Try the next 3 on your own. By the way, I wrote them all out like this because, guys, if I solve a problem vertically, you should solve it vertically. I'm telling you, I do this stuff on purpose based off research and findings of what helps us learn. Math is best solved vertically. The number line. You should have never been taught a horizontal number line. Vertical number lines make much more sense to us. I know. Like, that's why that little number line, if you look, it says vertical is better. Like, that is the brand of the number line. Solve them. Don't write them down, solve them. It's okay if you did not do these vertically this time, but in the future, please try to, if I'm solving things vertically, and I know on the screen they're stacked. Sorry, that was just to keep them out of the way. So I know I stacked them over here, so sorry that I did that. That was kind of misleading. So it's okay if you stack them on your paper. But for problems like this where we're doing like a few of the same type, I like to just put them across my paper to have those examples together. So guys, this should be what you look at when you're doing Khan Academy, to remind you of what we did in class. And these questions are the exact same ones you might see in Khan. I had somebody one day come and tell me, they're like, Mr. Hudson, you know you did my homework for me? And I'm like, well, I really don't think that's true. And they said, well, the questions you did in class are exactly what I had on my homework. I was like, well, that's just coincidence, because the questions you get are randomized. And I look at the entire list of questions to decide what we're going to do in class. So I do a couple easy, a couple tough, and I like look for the trap doors, right? It just so happened that like the questions we did in class was what that student did for their homework. But literally, guys, I pull these from what you're going to see in your practice. It is on purpose. It is strategic. I like games, and I like winning, and I am trying to win at educating you. So, bad guy 4P, bad guy 6P, anybody, everybody, what do we get? negative 10p. Good guy 2s and a bad guy 4s. What do we get? Negative 2s. And negative k. Well, getting rid of a bad guy. Ooh, here's our trapdoor question. What is getting rid of a bad guy like? Drew? Adding, right? Minusing a negative is like adding. So negative k, actually then plus 8k gets us 7k. For the sake of lack of time, we are going to skip over to this problem. So please write this one down. Negative n plus negative 4. I'm actually going to move this. Let's do this. This is the trapdoor, but I'm going to move it up on the page so you guys can see it a bit more easily. I'm so sorry that it's ridiculously pixelated. Maybe I should just write these problems. I like to copy them and make them stick out on the paper on that white background so it activates our eyes and hopefully is easier to see. But I can't actually from the... Well, I'd have to check. Normally it pastes over really weird. So guys, if I went through and used some color coding on this, I could color code, okay, n is going to go with n. My constants are going to go with my constants. But, dangerous trapdoor, trip line, darts in the wall, the whole thing. Victor, you with me? You're letting gravity win, man. I need to see your notes after class. Like literally right after class, I need to see you. Negative n. Oh, wait, forget about that. Let's look at this. Minus negative 4n becomes plus 4n. That's the only thing I did because I don't want to fall in any other trapdoors while I'm doing something else. Now that I avoided that trapdoor, negative n plus a 4n, who wins? Good guy or bad guy? Good guy, right? The 4 is stronger. Well, what number is actually over here? Negative 1n, right? We said there's actually always a 1 in front of these variables. So negative 1 versus 4. The 4 wins by 3. And we look at the negative 4 versus 6. And the good guy wins by 2. How long do I actually have? Miss Allie got mad at me yesterday because I kept my class long. Because we got a white desk, so I want to make sure you have time to write that down. We might as well start wrapping up. And then if you guys get over there before Miss Allie ends her class, can somebody please do me the favor and say Mr. Hudson is waiting for his students? Victor, keep your notes out. Once you wipe your desk, come see me, man.